Are you ready, Jason? Okay. Welcome to the City of Indianola, November 4th, 2024 council meeting. If we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Richardson.
Present.
Beach. Graves.
Here.
Dolby.
Here.
Stones.
Present.
Armstrong.
Here.
Mayor Erickson.
Present. Beach cannot be with us this evening. We'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. I have one form here. If you have a filled out a form and you'd like to speak after this, please come to the podium and state your name and address. The first form I have is Jeff Daniel. And give your address.
Yep, my name is Jeff Daniel, 1500 West Salem Avenue. I also work for Vanderpool. Here today, more or less to just discuss some of the comments that were made at the previous council meeting and try to dispel any factual inaccuracies that were stated. We felt it was important to come here and talk about that here today, just because we felt kind of pressured that we needed to do so. I don't want to feel like I'm attacking you guys, because I do think you guys do a wonderful job as a whole. I think several of you were pretty quick there to pipe in and tell us about how the contract is actually stated, and I really appreciate that. Some of the frustrations there is in how some of the delivery was, and it was kind of vitriolic. We work on these projects diligently. We had complaints about someone driving through a yard, and as a company, we have no contractual obligation to go out there and help that homeowner. None. There's nothing that states that we need to, and yet, as a company, we went out there on that project as well as K Street, and we put up fence on our own dime. We didn't charge the city anything, because we don't want to be like every other contractor. We want to be better. We want to be the best. So to have our name insinuated that we weren't doing our job and feeling that kind of defamation there is frustrating. The city put out, these notifications on an estimated timeline, and it says that it is an estimate, that it is subject to change based upon weather and unforeseen circumstances. One of the rainiest starts to the year that we've ever had. Coming almost to August, we had only had 1 week where all of our crews had actually worked a full week. It was very wet to start. And then obviously we had the unforeseen circumstances, things with utilities and whatnot coming up. So I guess to try and state that we have a timeline or a deadline that we have to hit that is outside of our contract, and to publicly voice that is a little disheartening, because that can affect our business, our livelihoods. When people hear those things, that we're not living up to what we say we are. So again, that's why we're here. You guys have some great people in the city. I hope that you guys would trust them with the authority that you guys have given them. I understand some of the things that you guys have done, and maybe pulling to talk about things from a consent agenda to vote on. I think you need to be a little cautious on that in voting individually on those things that they technically have the authority to approve. What happens in the situation if you guys were to deny a change order that has previously been approved by someone and the work's been completed? What happens as a city? What kind of liability do you take on legally? It's been approved by someone that already has the authority, and then you deny that. So just a couple things to think about. You guys have some great people. Trust the experts and the professionals that you've put in place. Again, thank you for your time. Again, we just felt it very necessary to come up and at least kind of state our piece, that we are doing everything we can as a contractor to be the best around here and the city as a whole. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a public comment? All right, seeing none, moving into item 5, which is the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled?
Mayor, I need to pull 5E.
Like to pull C4.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with,
Are you gonna abstain on the E? It's also on the claims.
we should pull claims as well too?
Yes.
I would move everything about the items mentioned to pull.
Okay, so that is approval of claims, C4 and E5.
Second.
All right, Ben, would you like to give us a rundown?
Sure, we do have the setting of 3 public hearings. These are all preparing for and making changes to our urban renewal areas. One to amendment number 8 to the Hillcrest Downtown Urban Renewal Area, and the other one, Summercrest Hills, as well as Kentucky Ridge, setting all of those for December the 2nd. We pulled C4. We also have approval of a payment application number 2 for the Buxton 92 Avenue light. That's with Klein Electric for $125,000. Approval of pay application number 2 for IMU for the East Hillcrest project, $35,000. Liquor license renewals, a home-based Iowa initiative application. We pulled items E and F. Third readings on several ordinance changes to bring our code into compliance with state code. A second consideration on an ordinance for a rezone. This is for Integra Electric. A resolution authorizing the purchase of a Milo machine for the police department. That's a simulation machine for their training. Resolution approving the final plat for Summercrest Plat 2, revitalization designation. And
Questions? Go ahead and vote. This is something we'll be discussing later too on Wednesday, so kind of about it this work.
I didn't get the option. I'm sorry. Councilmember Rabe, do you have?
All right, so why don't we just go to
Yep,
voice votes
yep,
this
sounds good.
evening? Okay.
Councilmember Rabe?
Aye.
Bobby?
Aye.
Sullins? Aye. Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
All right, can I get a first and second motion on item C? Number 4, resolution to set a public hearing for December 2nd, 2024, PM at which proposed to approve and authorize the transfer of real property.
Second.
And Melissa, did you have a specific question on this?
I do. I have a couple questions. I'm just curious why, I know this is setting the public hearing, but I'm just wondering why we're not doing this in joint session like we did before.
what's more of a housekeeping item and more of a formality, we as a council and as a commission or as board of supervisors did do the joint and did approve the exchange of land. We went through all the process to get all the abstracts cleaned up. It's not, the cities and the counties don't typically divest themselves of land very often. So it took a lot to get us to where we are to get ready for closing. But one of the aspects that was required is a public hearing in order to divest yourself of land and trade. And so these are more formalities and housekeeping steps. Move forward with a joint meeting for that purpose, just on both of our agendas.
So there's no chance that they would vote against I assume there's something on their agenda.
Yeah, they're gonna have a public hearing as well, and they would have their approval, just like you and your approval. We don't anticipate that they would a different direction. It's in their own best interest, work on their office space and their facilities needs. Every indication has been for their support of this moving forward as well. I haven't heard anything contrary from their county attorney or from our legal counsel. Working good partnership all the way through.
So playing devil's advocate, what if one of the supervisors were to change their mind?
And we would need to regroup and have a joint session for sure.
Any other questions? All right, Jackie?
Councilmember Solms?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Move on to item E. Can I get a first and second motion on resolution approving reimbursement of the downtown facade and interior improvement grant program? Ron, want to state, I guess, your reason for pulling it?
Yeah, so I have a family member that is receiving that grant, so I just need to abstain.
Same reason for approval of claims. Let me circle back. All right, Jackie?
Councilmember Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Abstain.
Solms?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
All right, and then can I get a first and second motion on approval of claims?
Moved.
Second.
In the same reasoning, Jackie?
Councilmember Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Abstain.
Solms?
Aye.
Part of the agenda, which is council reports, and under that, we have our library annual report.
Right. Good evening. My name is Michelle Patrick, Director of the Public Library. It's my pleasure to give the annual report for fiscal year 24. So this year, the library celebrated its 140th anniversary as a public library. As some of you may know, we are one of the oldest public libraries in the state. At this point in 1884, just a handful of libraries are public. The rest of the communities are still private libraries, which are exactly what they sound like. They were clubs. You had to know the right people and you had to pay a pretty hefty fee to use the library. But in March of 1884, the people of Indianola easily passed the vote to establish the public library, and it was opened its doors officially on June 27, 1884. This June, we celebrated that anniversary in the best possible way by wrapping up the library's best year in its history. So really, any metric, any way you want to look at it, it was the library's best year. Beginning with the big one, library checkouts. This is 188,621 checkouts last year. And you can see, in the last couple of years, we have really seen this upward trajectory. Another record was door count. 82,474 people came in the door. So the door count shows just the number of people. It doesn't give us an idea of how long they are there or what they're doing. We do know that some people are only there for maybe 20 minutes checking a book. Some people are hours and others are there all day long. They are doing a variety of things. They are not only looking at books, they're doing research, they're having meetings. We have Zoom calls in the middle of the library. We have people at programs, people using the meeting room. We have teens. We have a lot of teens hanging out at the library. And then we have people spending a lot of time in the children's section of the library. And I think this is one of the pieces that's really changed for me. So I came to Indianola in 2011 and became, as a staff librarian, became the director at the end of 16. And, the way people use the library in that time has really changed. It used to be, people would see the library as a place that you go to get something. And now we see that people are going to the library to do something. They're really seeing it as a destination place. And that's the piece where we've seen our building fall short. It's a lovely building. It's a great design. It's very efficient, but it wasn't built to accommodate the kind of expectations that people have of their library today. So it's certainly a lesson that we've learned and we're going to keep in mind as we move forward. Library collection. So in 1884, we started with 575 used books. Today we have over 200,000 books. In the library are 46,533 physical items. And to give you just a little bit of context on what that number is, if you look at the 3 communities in Iowa that are closest to us in size, their library collections have 62,000, 64,000, and 85,000 items in their library. So we have a pretty small collection, but that is a space issue, not a funding issue. In our online, we have over 153,000 items. This is a little bit misleading because only about 500 of those are actually owned by the Indianola Public Library. The rest of those 153,000 items are part of a consortium that we share with 501 other public libraries in the state. And so what that means is that the lines are very long for your ebooks. Right now, the average is 54 days from the time you put it on hold until the time you get your books, about 2 months to get an ebook. And this is a funding issue, not a space issue. So ebooks, just a brief divergence in ebooks. Ebooks are very, very expensive for libraries, and you don't really get your money's worth, to be honest with you, because an ebook is about $60 for an ebook, but only one person can have it at a time, and it expires at 2 years. So for $60, you buy the book. 2 years later, you buy it again. 2 years later, you buy it again. Whereas a hardback book, our cost is about $17 a book. That stays in the library 20, 30 years, as long as it's popular. And so that is why we don't buy more ebooks. It's just not very fiscally responsible. But we do try to keep those very, very popular books. We do buy those, but the ebook collection is probably not going to grow much because as we buy new ones, the older ones are dropping off. So I took that little side path there because I hear a lot about ebooks and I hear people say, if you just went to ebooks, you could save a lot of money. We will not save a lot of money. So ebooks are important, but they are not the future of the library. So knowing all of that, this next slide is going to make a little more sense. Even though those physical items are a very, very small part of our collection, they make up 75% of our checkouts. Is what people are really checking out. Another record year for program attendance, 18,106 attending children's programs. That is a 15% increase over last year, which is pretty good. And 84% of those programs are for children and family, which really for us in the library, that's sort of our bread and butter. Last year we did 562 programs. Which is a lot. We're pretty heavily programmed library. Library users over 8,000 active users. These are people who use their card in the last couple of years. And there is the age breakdown. And I want to show you this because this is a very, very good graphic. This is exactly what we want to see in our public library. We want to see every generation pretty evenly represented. We do trend a little young, but not at the exclusion of our older generations. And that's pretty typical of Metro Des Moines libraries. They do tend to have a pretty young clientele. It's not shown as well because a lot of folks check out their kids' books. But we trend young, but it's a good thing. And certainly there's something for everyone at the library. I think that's pretty clearly shown. I do want to take just a moment to go over a couple of ways that the library is going above and beyond in serving our community. First of all, expanding story time. So we have been in the last few years very systematically expanding our story times. The ones that we have during the day, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 and then 10:30, those are very popular. Story times have been popular at the library since the 1920s. But we want to make sure that kids who aren't able to come to the library during a weekday in the morning also have the opportunity to have story times. So for some years, we've been going out, we visit daycares, preschools, the schools, and we do story times there. Beginning about 3 years ago, we began to do Saturday story times. Last year, we expanded those. Every single Saturday, there is a story time. And this year, we are working on more evening story times. In fact, there is a story time going on right now that we're missing. And our goal is always continue to make the library more accessible for everyone. And the only thing that's really holding us back is staff. We are partnering with DMAC for HiSET on the Move. HiSET is a high school equivalency test, used to be called the GED. So we are supporting those folks in our community who are earning their diploma. We have free test proctoring and college prep resources, if you're taking the ACT, the SAT, the GRE, those type of things, we are supporting those students who are moving up in their education. The People's Law Library, this is a really great resource. It's put together by the state, and they have consolidated Iowa law resources into one website. And it's very well organized, very easy to read. So if you don't have to be a lawyer to figure it out, and it has free legal forms. There's also a place that you can submit legal questions and they will answer that. So it doesn't take the place of a lawyer, but a lot of times what you really need is information. You don't necessarily have to go consult a lawyer to get there. We partner with Helping Hand, have a food pantry in the lobby. This is a great partnership because we are open 7 days a week. This is a great resource for our community, and it is stocked with like ready-made sandwiches and wraps. It's not a traditional food pantry, but if you're hungry right now, there's something in that refrigerator for you. And it's very heavily used. We collect diapers for it's called For the Short Years. They distribute diapers to low-income people in our community. In our teen section, we have what's called an I Have a Need cabinet that is funded by grant through Tyson's, and that is items that a teen may need. It has toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, warm socks, an umbrella, handy today. But if a teen doesn't have one of those basic items, they could go into there, take what they need, and their needs are filled that way. The adventure passes, these are really interesting. Adventure passes are essentially the Friends of the Library purchase family passes to educational, cultural places like the zoo or the science center, and then they purchase it and then we all get to share it. So you could check it out one week and you could check it out the next week. And it certainly saves families money, but that's not really why we do it. It is, I don't know if you've been to the science center lately. It's $68 for a family to go to the science center, just the admission, $70 to the zoo. Well worth it. Well, it's a great experience. It's a good price for the experience you get, but that price tag does put it out of a lot of families' ability. And what we want, our goal at the library, why the library does this, is we don't want any child in our community to be denied those educational or cultural experiences just because their family's budget is a little lean. And so we have those passes so everyone gets those opportunities. And finally, community outreach. Library is everywhere. You'll see us at every parade. You're gonna see us a couple weeks at the Light of Parade. We join in on all the festivities, any community thing that we can. We partner with anybody who's willing to partner with us. We have joint programs with Parks and Rec, ICYF, Simpson College. We have a great joint project we're working on with Simpson College. Can't wait to let you know about it. Really out there in the community, letting people see the library and letting us know that we're there for everyone to use. Because, you know, really community outreach, that's the mission of the library at its heart, is to serve this community in the best way that we can. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
That's for Michelle.
No, I don't really have any questions, Michelle. I'm glad to see the community is really using the library in the manner that you want it to be used in. I love history about the community. Do you know where the first public library was?
Oh, you're gonna wish you hadn't asked that question. Our history is so interesting. It is so interesting. And there's a whole story about how the city council made this happen. But it was on the east side of the square. It was the second floor, the east side of the square above a law firm. That was where the original library was. It moved around the square a couple times and then finally they got the Carnegie in 1910.
Michelle, you mentioned, I'm sorry, were we going in a certain order? No, okay. You mentioned books and libraries, a space issue.
Mhm.
So I'm excited about the methods and things we're doing and looking at for potentially a new library and what we're gonna go there. Do you have any idea where you'd like to land as far as how many books you'd like to have in the library? Is there a number that's kind of the number that you want to hit, or is it just kind of out there yet and you haven't gotten to that point?
You know, it's kind of an average. I would say the best that we could do is figure out what other libraries are sized, and those are around 60 to 70,000 is kind of the average.
Yeah.
So that would be the number we would want to shoot for.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I would like,
Well, go up, yeah, well, yeah.
but.
More history books, right, Ron?
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good job. The library's doing a great job.
Moving on to item B, council committee reports. Does anybody have a report? I'll start, Richardson, with you.
I had a meeting Thursday with the Iowa League of Cities, mostly talking about the upcoming strategic planning session we're having this Thursday. I did invite Ben when we had, so Iowa League had a gentleman come down from Minnesota that was the former director of the Minnesota League of Cities to do a strategic interview with us and a number of other cities in our league. Ben took part in that as well, and I appreciate his time there. And we're gonna go through that Thursday and come up with a strategic plan. There's a lot of changes they want to make as far as getting more involved, I guess.
Testimony meeting Thursday morning, so welcome.
Need to go in and I can't make it, so.
Well, my computer is. Don't worry, Jason, it's self-error here that I'm having. Okay, so moving on to item C. Can I get a first and second motion on the consideration of reappointing layers to the Sustainability Committee for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending July 1st, 2027?
So moved. Second.
Any questions?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Move on to the mayor's report. I don't have much. I met with Erica from Main Street last week. We were discussing home for the holidays, and I believe she'll be here at our next meeting to present.
As well as the chamber.
Okay, great. We're desperate for help on November 23rd with the Home for the Holidays event. We also talked about Mayor's Youth Council's involvement. We'll be hosting Santa Claus again and having a letter writing campaign to Santa. I have an upcoming meeting with Polk County probation officers and sheriff's office regarding at Harvest Academy, talking about the impact they're making. And then just a huge congratulations to some of our high school teams. Our girls and boys high school cross-country runners ran last Friday. And our volleyball team played today and unfortunately was eliminated from the tournament, but congratulations to them. And that's all I have. Great. We will on to public consideration. Item A, under old business, is the fiscal year 25. Can I get a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding the First Amendment to fiscal year 25 budget?
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Ray.
You're now in the public hearing and turn it over to you, Roxanne.
Hello. So as you probably saw in your memo, it was very detailed, all the changes that we are making. I'm just gonna give you a highlight tonight on all of those changes since the detail was in the memo. But I did want to highlight a question that I had received from Steve Armstrong. A lot of these changes, especially the revenues and some of the expenses, there was the budget that was established and that was in our system. However, there was a calculation error with the spreadsheet, so it didn't get reported correctly to the state. So this amendment fixes that going forward. I will tell you that is one of the reasons why we needed a new ERP system. The new ERP system actually has a module or something within it where we can actually identify the state budget forms so that it'll be easier and we can make sure we include everything. When we have these spreadsheets, sometimes things get excluded and if we're pressed for time, we want to make sure that we include it all, but unfortunately this time it didn't get all included. So we wanted to correct that with this amendment. So any questions with that before I start with the amendments or with the changes?
So, and I read your email back to Steve. Will we receive an audit finding when the audit rolls around?
No, as long as it's fixed before the end of the fiscal year, we will not receive an audit finding.
Thank you.
And we also, as I included with the last treasurer report, I included that function check at the bottom of your memo. That also is basically to ensure that we're not going over the expenditures. And we haven't been, so even though we didn't report it correctly to the state, we're still doing fine within the budget. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So for revenues, we're increasing by $3,945,056. And basically, we're increasing a lot of things: donations and contributions, refunds and reimbursements, library service reimbursements, downtown biz incentive reimbursement from participants, increased interest, charges for service, transfer in, and increased grants for various funds, as well as having a new SRO at Indianola School District, and we'll receive that reimbursement from the school district. So that made up, as well as any corrections that we had to make for the state budget form.
Can I just ask you a question here?
Yes,
Just want to clarify, that's not additional revenue because we further increased taxes to our residents. It's because of some
yes,
calculations.
it was
that were incorrect.
calculations,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that everybody understands we didn't increase taxes for this
Yes.
particular.
And we're not increasing, I mean, this is, I said additional, but it's additional to the state, not necessarily to us, because it's already included in the budget. As far as expenses, we're only, because we had to fix a Scrivener's error on that side. And then with the additional expenses, we're only amending expenses by $444,000. And that includes the library strategic plan, Parks and Rec special revenue, the hometown pride, we're increasing that. The Tyler ERP system, road use tax fund, equipment rental increase, rate agreement for DeArmond for the TIF downtown fund, the sewer billing services and lift station generator annual maintenance, stormwater engineering fees, increased billing fees and CIP, recycling, which I need to see my own typos, recycling, increased billing services, and streets deductible expense. And then for some of the capital things that were already approved by the council, we had a police 2024 Tahoe and 2024 Silverado that was approved. And it may come in this year, but there's a possibility that it will come in next year too, but we're just amending it just in case. The ambulance, there's a chassis for the ambulance number 247 that was approved with the last council session, as well as a replacement fire pump and turnout gear dryer. The jet vac truck for sewer came in. That was, I believe, ordered in fiscal year 22, but that finally came in and that was approved by you guys. Also transfers out increased to accommodate for all those capital expenditures. And then we had increased computer tech services for community development, new stove, fire, coffee maker, and PPE for fire. And then several EMS changes, a uniform allowance, medical director contract and malpractice insurance, Digitech contract services. Those fees went up from 4.25% to 8%. So it was a big increase. So you'll see that I factored in that change in your amendment. And then 6 Cradle Points and Service Pros. So overall, this amendment will actually increase our fund balance on the budget form. So, which is always a good thing. And we're still trying to finalize the fiscal year 24 budget. But my whole intention is once we get the final numbers, I was going to send you the fund balances so that you knew where we were standing at the end of the fiscal year. And then as well as I can update it based on this budget amendment. So, but any other questions?
Thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to exit the public hearing?
Yes.
Second, Jackie.
First motion.
I did.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sons. Aye. Armstrong.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Moving on to item B, can I get a first and second motion on a resolution approving the First Amendment to the fiscal year 25 budget?
So moved.
Second.
Jackie.
Member Dalby.
Aye.
Sons.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Ray.
Moving on to other business, city manager's report from Ben Reeves.
Okay, so I just want to give an update on a few things. I do really want to give a very positive comment on the Hillcrest project and the South K Street project. Hillcrest, the intersection was opened up and the school district is going through, and we would very much appreciate the work that was done by them for that. South K, we're just waiting on painting for that work to be completed and move forward, and we're excited to see that project and how well both of them are in our community. So it's great to see that work go to a local contractor and to see the good work forward. 92 in Buxton, the work is completed as far as the horizontal is concerned. Vertical, those masts and arms will be coming in January timeframe. The Wander on Buxton sidewalk redo will be kicking off fairly shortly. We did have one thing that we wanted to bring up with you this evening with regard to the N Street project that the council approved. That was a failure of a void underneath that was broken up. And now that that's been opened up, there is some greater cavities, greater things that we are discovering. And so I wanted to invite Keelish up to talk about that, because time is of the essence on this one in order for us to get repairs made. And so we need to bring a change order to you based on what Keelish talks about. But we don't want to wait until the next council meeting to do so. And so we're hoping that the council could give us the your opinions on this change order, and we will have a ratification vote on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is Akhilesh Paul, Public Works Director. As you know, you have approved on September, I believe, the City Council has approved a project for repairing the storm sewer, the failed storm sewer pipes on North End Street, which is at 600 and 700 block of North End Street. When we had this project, we were only able to televise only a certain portion of the pipes because there were either failures or protruding pipes in the pipe network, such as private storm sewer taps. So we were not able to finish our televising for the entire segment. We were just frankly keeping our fingers crossed with the hope that there won't be as much failures. But as a part of this contract, we had our contractor televise the entire segment, and we are seeing many more failures. Sorry about that. We are seeing many more failures than what we initially predicted. So basically at this point, we are expecting, I just had a meeting this morning, and we are expecting at least a range between $35,000 to $40,000 in additional sewer pipes that we expect to repair as part of this project. And time is of the essence because we are going to see winter weather conditions soon. So we wanted to bring this to you as soon as we got the news. And we are hoping that we get your approval on this, but we will formally present it in our next meeting, November 18th, with all the specifics and details on that change order.
I had a discussion with a contractor on that job. Talked about a number of things, but that job in particular, and his explanation is along the line of what you presented. In fact, the fact you couldn't televise it, and the fact that it was a lot of other things that were there as well. And so I'm always in favor of doing things the right way and making sure we do it so that we don't have to come back in 5 years or 10 years and redo everything again. And so I'm perfectly fine with this.
you know what we originally were thinking that project was gonna cost, and then what would it actually came in at?
So the initial engineer's estimate, if I believe, if I'm trying to recall, $123,000. The bids came in at $109,000. And we are, with this, we are gonna end up at around $145,000. Significantly, previously I think there were 4 to 5 pipe segments that was going to be replaced. With this new change order, we're gonna replace at least 13 pipe segments in that location, so.
Your question, if I may, again, the conversation with the contractor was that just the fact that they couldn't push the survey through the pipes, and because of some of the other connections and things that were there, indicated some real issues too, and so they didn't know at the time of bid, and obviously we didn't either, so. I don't know if that answers your question.
Are we going further to the north or to the south? Both.
How many homes are affected by this?
4 houses.
Is it gonna push our timeframe back?
It will definitely have an impact on the working days, but we are trying to have this finished before the winter weather conditions hit.
I'm looking at some of the estimates that we had, and it would, kind of what Steve said, I'd rather do it right too, but it would push us to what 2 of the estimates were anyway, or bids that we got anyway, so. I'm seeing like 149 for one of them too that we had for a bid, so.
I don't, kind of a conversation somewhere down the road with a couple different people that it just wasn't compacted properly, and there was connection issues, if I'm understanding correctly, and so that leaked and caused the voids, and a lot of other things happened there. And that's a pretty steep hill at that short period of space, and so that was.
So there's no vote on the agenda, or no action for the council to move forward with. The north section was around 25,000, south was around 10,000-ish, and then there might be some change in there. I'm gonna give the approval for us to move forward and pull that, and just plan on bringing that to you for your formal consideration and approval during the next. Very good, thank you so much. And then
Thank you.
in case anybody has got television, radio, emails, newspapers, your mailbox, tomorrow's election day, we hope you go out and vote.
Really?
That's right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Let's get a quick 5-minute break and then come back first. between the city council and the IWC. Thank you all for coming this evening, and we look forward to hearing your guys' recommendations from the Power Sports presentation, or Power Wellness, I think I said it wrong. Thank you.
Well, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to continue the conversation as a follow-up to the Power Wellness presentation in September. Seems like it was a long time ago. Since that time, the trustees, we do have a couple joining us online, and then we have one who will be joining us as soon as he gets off of work. So we'll all be present here tonight. We've held a regular meeting to discuss the recommendations of Power Wellness, what they presented to us. And we also worked with the IWC leadership staff team to gather their feedback. They look at things from an operational perspective, and we thought it would be beneficial to hear what they were thinking of the presentation. Tonight, we're prepared to share feedback on the Power Wellness presentation. And we also look forward to hearing your feedback and what your thoughts were on the presentation. We hope to leave tonight's meeting with clarity of direction and expectations moving forward. But as we begin, I would ask for some clarification on the overall goal of the meeting tonight. We had two different agendas sent to us as far as what the agenda was, and then also a communication to us asking for suggestions and how we could bring the IWC into the black, which is really beyond our scope of our bylaws as trustees. So I guess I want to start the meeting just making sure we know what the goal is so that we're presenting.
I think that's an excellent, I think I'll refer to Ben or Jackie. This was set by our city staff. So we're not exactly sure. That's why I asked before we started,
We just want to make sure
what are we talking about
being
this evening to
helpful.
understand? Okay.
Well, certainly, it's been such a transition bringing the IWC from the YMCA into the city. And we just couldn't extend enough appreciation to all of you for your volunteer hours and dedicated service, as well as to our staff. And making that transition go as smooth as possible, and then seeing the growth that has taken place since that transition. That's exciting. But with that, we of course have this as a enterprise fund within our city, and enterprise funds are typically self-sufficient. And so the intent and purpose for us even going after the Power Wellness analysis was really to give us ideas and thoughts and concepts of what we might be able to undertake that would make it more financially sustainable. Everything from looking at our square footage and how we could better utilize that, to more programming or selling product or whatever it might be. How do we get it so that it's financially stable, so that it's an asset for our community over the long term? And not only just an asset, but something that continues to be invested in, because if we're going to have membership continue to increase, we want to make sure that we're replacing out equipment and we're taking care of capital needs and all of that type of thing. So we held the previous joint meeting so that we could get the results all together of that study, and then turn that over to you to do a little deeper dive into reviewing and seeing what you think of the options that they presented, whether we take different courses of action. That's really up for discussion. I don't think that there's an intent for us to leave tonight with a solid set course, but really to have a good dialogue and to share your ideas and what you've studied from this evaluation, to give the council ideas as they prepare to go into next year's budget season, to help plan out how we can take the steps necessary to get us so that we're not only able to do all the things I just said, but take care of our staff as well along the way, because certainly they've done a lot, and we haven't made a lot of changes in that area either, and we need to invest in our staff just as much as our equipment and the facilities. So if that's a big picture of everything, I'm going to go back to my background.
Thank you for clarifying that then. As I said, we're prepared tonight to share the Power Wellness side of things, and then also some suggestions and ideas. I think that that's more of a long-term thing that we'll need to work together on. Sure. As far as Power Wellness feedback, looking back to that September presentation, it was exciting for us to think about ways to refresh and enhance the IWC. New equipment is desperately needed. We liked the overall emphasis on the health aspect of the community. And we also liked the chance to expand programming and the opportunity to have the resources to focus on marketing and technology. That being said, the information in the Power Wellness presentation was very similar to what we have done in the past when under the Y structure. Power Wellness pointed out that the IWC has a very lean staff, and we wholeheartedly agree. And we believe that with the addition of staff, we would have the skill set, staff resources, and capacity to reintroduce the items that they presented in a strategic, prioritized way. We see the need to develop a phased-in approach in securing new equipment, refreshing programming, implementing new marketing technologies, introducing an app that is possible through our current core software that we utilize today, integrating medical programming, and continuing to focus on the overall health of the community. We're not disagreeing with what they presented. We just think we might need to do a slow and steady, strategized approach versus doing it all at once. As trustees, we were less excited about the suggestions of installing a fit shop and the grab and go cafe. Those weren't items that any of us were super interested in. We questioned some of Power Wellness's suggestions on marketing capacity, targeted marketing areas, and the information specific to Indianola. For example, the stated average household income and the maps including West Des Moines as a targeted market area. Trustees also had many questions about the implementation of Power Wellness's plan, most notably the overall cost and structure, what it actually would look like. We felt like that was very bare bones in their presentation. Trustees questioned the overall impact of the Power Wellness plan, since it does not address any long-term maintenance plans of the building or dive deeper into our current 28E agreements with our partners, Simpson and Indianola schools. Overall, the trustees were underwhelmed by the Power Wellness presentation and their suggestions. While we were not made aware of this assessment taking place prior to the start date, nor did we see it as a priority with our limited resources, we embraced the reality that it was happening. And we fully expected the outcome to be useful information that we could use moving forward. We were disappointed that the outcome was more of a one-size-fits-all sales pitch than a helpful tool to move us forward. During our reflection of the presentation, we kept coming back to the reality that there were 3 underlying needs that need to be addressed by the city leadership. These recommendations are not new, and quite frankly, they don't pertain to Power Wellness. They have been communicated often, and we feel it's time to address them. The first one is that the city needs to revisit the 28E agreements with its partners. We appreciate our partners, and we think it says a lot about our community that the IWC can host competitive swimming from elementary age all the way through college. It's a unique situation that our staff manages on a daily basis. The 28E agreements that were negotiated before the Y broke ground were never sustainable. They were written in a way that maximized cash availability in order to meet immediate overall funding source needs and to break ground in a timely manner. Pools are expensive to run and maintain, and the 28E agreements did not factor in a way to generate any revenue from the parties who utilize the competition pools. So therefore, the operators, you all, get to bear the burden of the operating and maintaining the competitive pools. This is not sustainable. The 28E agreements need to be renegotiated and updated to reflect current conditions and meet the needs of our community long term. We want to continue to work together with our partners. We really do. And we see an opportunity for all involved to have their needs met. We recommend to the city that they begin the renegotiation process so that all parties have a clear path moving forward. The second thing that kept cropping up was the fact that we need to finalize long-term maintenance plans and put them in place. IWC leadership needs more support and transparency in making this come to fruition. Clear financial direction will allow for a working long-term maintenance plan. This will allow staff to work with infrastructure in place that everyone is aware of, rather than responding to needs as they arise and a lack of accountability. The last thing that kept cropping up was that we see a need to fine tune the integration into city structure. The transition of city operation has had many wins and challenges. In order to continue the transition moving forward, it's important to remember that the IWC is a member-driven enterprise. The staff and leadership team show up every day with the goal of meeting the needs of the members. This is different than many of the structures within the city. This has caused some growing pains when posting jobs, working out maintenance needs, and even looking at holidays from a different angle than the city is used to. Transparency is necessary moving forward. We appreciate all the city staff members and what they've done to make the transition as seamless as possible. But we feel like there's some room for improvement and growth to ensure all staff know the overall mission of the IWC and the definition of being member-driven. Outcomes are impacted when communication breaks down, and budget input and development has not been a two-way street. We have a lot to learn and look forward to moving past these growing pains. We believe there's room to identify inefficiencies within the city structures and work with other departments to work smarter. We envision building many two-way bridges in order for this to become a reality. Staff and trustees currently are making efforts that are not being reciprocated, which is not conducive to team building. We do need direction from council on how the IWC fits into the larger city structure. Now is the time to define who the IWC is. We need an identity in the community that goes past the IWC being the old Y, which we all hear every day. Working together, we can make this a reality. We can then develop a long-term plan that is sustainable and meets the needs of all parties. We are proud of the role that the IWC plays in the community and believe it is a huge asset when attracting people of all ages to Indianola. We are confident in our leadership team and staff members. They have worked tirelessly to ensure a smooth transition, and they are dedicated to the mission of the IWC. They are professionals in all aspects of their roles, and we are very fortunate to have them. They have begun work on a long-term operational plan that is sustainable. But they need to know definitive budget numbers and the overall commitment level of the city before they can complete their work. Without clarity, little progress can be made. It's not lost on us that we underwent a transition a little over a year ago. This transition included the opportunity to regain local control, something our community desperately needed. Members applauded this move, the community embraced it, and you as a council supported it. Thank you. With the health of our community in mind, we'd like to keep the momentum going. In order to do that, we need to find the best way to work together. First and foremost, we need clear direction on how council is looking at the IWC, both in the long and short term. We also need clarity on what council expects of us as trustees. Once that is made clear, the steps of 28E renegotiation, maintenance plans, and fine-tuning of the integration into a well-defined city structure can take place according to your direction. We want to be good partners with you and look forward to hearing your direction. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, that's all right. I took notes so we can address each point.
Sure.
But I think before we address those 3 points you gave, I think you asked some excellent questions. You need to know the expectations, and we really haven't been able to have that group chat. I think mainly because we were waiting for this. And I'm happy to hear, I think you feel the same way a lot of us do, but I think you're all doing an excellent job. And I think you can all do this without them. I think you're right. We have excellent staff. Heather's amazing. And so is all of her team, Casey back there and a couple others. So I'll let you guys kind of talk about that. That's kind of more of a.
I had a couple questions on that, on 2080s. When do the current 2080s expire?
I believe they were 30-year agreements.
Are we able to renegotiate without them expiring?
You can always negotiate. You can always sit down and talk and whatnot. But as the contract currently stands, we are bound by that contract unless we come to a mutually beneficial revisiting of that agreement. Those are binding. They are, even though they make reference to a YMCA 28E, they're independent of that YMCA 28E that has now been amended and permitted. So we are bound by it, but that doesn't mean we can't work as good partners with the school district in Simpson to try to find a solution moving forward.
I would agree with that. I think we've heard that from Heather. We talked about that in the joint meeting with the school board too, about needing to renegotiate those. I think once the Y left, it's apparent we should go back to the table to start talking about those. And I think they would want to partner with us to handle the hours here.
Over here, Steve, over here.
No, I don't wanna get that.
Because you just came from work and it's something that we don't wanna smell or is it something else?
I was worried about getting put on the elected side and then just.
Sorry, I'm late.
I don't know if Josh could handle that many Steves either.
It is a lot of Steves at one table.
That could be a PH.
Yeah. You need the balance, there you go.
But I don't think we're really giving them the direction of what our long-term goal and plan for them is, which is, I think, before we get into 1, 2, and 3, I don't know if we can answer that yet, because we haven't even had a really, real conversation. I think we have a lot of trust in if you guys have a plan that you think we can get it in the black in the long term. I don't think that anybody expects it tomorrow.
I think that's really the concern. Obviously, we knew through the transition, we would go through a period where we might even drop in membership and there might be a drop in revenue, and actually that really didn't take place. It was, I think community support came in much higher than anticipated. Look at, I'm at the height here. I'm the little one. I'm the little one.
I'm a little taller than you.
And so that, the fact that the revenues have come up as quickly as they have is fantastic. At the same time, we have a facility that has a lot of repair issues that are kind of hitting all at once. And I don't know that what we inherited back from the YMCA was as maintained as well as it could have been. I think the staff did the best they could with what they had. But the pools, the HVAC systems have been kind of limped along and now they're all needing repair at the same time. And the concern is, and the equipment is that some of those repairs are key critical because they might be a $10,000 repair now, but it might save a $200,000 replacement in the very near future if you change the oil, you don't buy the new engine, right? And so those are our concerns. And then, of course, if we're going to, we haven't changed any kind of structures, we haven't changed salaries, we haven't changed anything. We just inherited to see what we would have after a year and where we stand. And so we're learning as we're going. I think there's, I think that some of the points that you had that I took that I thought were very well taken is having a long-term vision and how do we achieve and get to that long-term vision. Well, maybe one of the things that we're seeing is a spike in maintenance, and we're seeing a spike in pool, and we're seeing a spike in equipment. Maybe something the city considers is taking out something like a 5-year note or instrument by which we take care of these maintenance issues We pay it off in a 5-year period and then perpetuate that payment going forward and making it so that we're giving it fresh paint, fresh equipment, fresh carpet, fresh everything. And thereby creating more value, and that greater value allows us to maybe adjust rates and pay off and incorporate it into a more smooth capital investment structure, not something that we're spiking and doing this. Those are different ideas that I think we can all explore. I think your point that I took out of this is having the long-term commitment, and I think that the community of Indianola has long since gone through a period of uncertainty where we never really knew with confidence at any given moment. And so everybody's kind of like cowering a little bit going, well, what did we go through with the Y and what did we go through with these experiences? If we have confidence that we all are going to go down this train together and we're all going to get there together, now we can start laying out the path to get there successfully and manage our finances to make it a successful journey and making it so that we do get to the black and that this is truly member benefited, but member revenue generated, and those two things come together in a cost structure that makes sense and takes care of our staff along the way. So I think these are all good ideas coming together for us to start exploring it. It's where we're going.
Yeah.
Wait,
Come on.
Mayor, could I put 3 questions out for you in your group chat?
Sure.
And I'm a fan of history books. So if
So
I
is this
could-
one, he wants to increase our history books to the library, so
Well,
now we know where to find you
The
two.
other thing I heard tonight, which I truly appreciate, is you want to do things right. And this group wants to do things right also. So I'm going to give you 3 questions to think about, and some of them are really big dreams that you might want to consider. Some of you will probably say, well, we can't do that. Well, I'd ask you to keep a very open mind about the concepts that I took from that report and many of the things I've heard here tonight that fit in with these 3 questions, okay? So this one I think needs to be responded to, not immediately, but after thorough discussion. And that has to do with, does the council wish to develop a short-term organizational plan for implementation in, say, 25 or 26? Or you want to stretch that vision out and look down the road for 5 to 7 years? If you think about what do we want this community like and be able to do in 2035, because the problems we encountered right now, or we're encountering right now, their seeds were planted 5 to 7 years ago. So where do you want to be in 2035, 2032, somewhere in that time frame? Now, it gets into that visioning, which is part of the dreaming that we have to do in this situation. So we need to know operational plans for the next 1 to 2 years, or are you looking for something longer than that? These people can put it together, but we just need to know. And that kind of alludes back to one of Angie's points. Now, the second point, and she alluded to this also, that, and I think this is a very important question. Does the council view the ILC as a standalone entity in this community? Or is it part of a long-term strategic plan for the community under that health and wellness concept? Or is it part of that Parks and Rec 10-year plan? Now, I viewed Ben, and I thought you did an excellent job on that summary with what's happening with regard to the building plans. And I'm so appreciative of this community starting to look down the road. But I think we need to look down the road for the IWC too. So then, if we say we want it to do a standalone, then give us some parameters. We'll figure it out. If you want to have it as a component of that total vision for this community, which would include your library, your public works department, and the IWC, then we need to include that in that vision and that dream. if you say, yeah, that's really Parks and Rec's ball, then we need to get incorporated into Parks and Rec department. Now, here's the dream, okay, and you think about this. Do you really know the needs of the Parks and Rec department? I'll bet you Doug does. And Doug, you correct me if I'm wrong, because one of the things we've decided to do as a board of trustees is we send somebody out to the Parks and Rec board meetings. And we sit at their table, we hear their information, and we've done that as an exchange. So a couple of things I heard at a Parks and Rec meeting is we needed one more gym in this community. Another thing I heard is we're out of space. We don't have any storage space out there. The ceilings are too low to do what we need to do. We just can't do what we need to do out there. So now think about this as 2020 or 2035, 2032, if you want to look 7 years. You got a property out there. You're going to bring the library over here. What happens if you redevelop that property out there and bring all that Parks and Rec stuff out there, get the storage, build that facility to the point where we can do everything that's in that report right there, and you have everything in one location. Okay, now, is that a short-term goal? No, but you can start on it. You can take his idea and start integrating that cycle of replacing equipment. And there's no way this city could ever say, you know, we're gonna replace all the computers in this entire city. You phase it in. So you start looking at a phased in project and make it happen over time. And you figure out how we can get that property used more efficiently. If you use the property more efficiently, you can do the programming more efficiently. And let me say this because I'm a pickleball player, or I was up until about 3 weeks ago. I had a little shoulder repair, but anyhow, unless you're retired, you can't play pickleball out there except on Sunday afternoon from 11 to 1. I don't think we're getting many people out there. So if we had an all-purpose gym out there, it would take the pressure off of Parks and Rec. You could take even that, some of that stuff that's going on at the library and free up some more space out there and get it out if you had the space. I think you could do the medical integration, which you talked about. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you've been around long enough. And if you look in the specs for the architectural design, that building was built for 50 years. That's all it was, 50 years. And 14 years ago, my wife and I think we were right over there in that room. We did a community meeting and said, okay, here's what we need to do. So what happens if we look at that sort of activity going on rather recently, or rather soon, maybe in year 1 here, we start talking to people, what do you want out there? You got play, you got space. So think about dreaming big, and do we need to solve the financial problem? Yes, absolutely. I think people in this community know me well enough that I don't want to spend money we don't have, and I don't want to continually be in the red. That's not acceptable business practice. So if you want to think about that, put it on the burner. And if you say, nah, we better go with a 2-year plan, that's fine if you think that's the right way to go. Now, third thing, and I think you really need to think about this. Do we want to turn that into a retail business that's competing with selling shirts and selling food and doing all that sort of stuff with any of the other retail businesses in this town? Or do we want to take a look at it and say, you know, that's a driver of community development. I think you've got a development out east. I think you got a development going across the road. You got a development down behind the Scooter's Coffee Shop. And I think there's probably some more developments being platted out. So what does that tell you? You're planning for growth. So you can't, in my estimation, you can't solve a problem in the next 2 years. When you gotta look at where that growth is going to be in 2032, 2035. We just cannot do it. Now, we can Band-Aid everything we wanna do. But unless you get that long-term goal. Now, I'm gonna close by, every one of those things that I have suggested have a positive and a negative return. And here's the most important point. They will all have unintended consequences, and you can't figure that out right now. But if you do enough planning and organizing, you can minimize those. Each one of those is going to develop a distinct set of skill sets and implementation strategies. And whatever course of action you folks decide, we'll work to make it happen. But if you look at the easiest one, that's the golden ticket. Probably not the best one. A lot of years of sitting in a chair, much like yours. So that's what I took from the report. Now, I appreciate hearing from my other colleagues as to what they took from the report.
I think those are all excellent questions, and all three we should all be thinking about for us all. So thank you for those. And in the words of Debbie Durham, Iowans don't dream big enough. So maybe we do need to dream a little bit big here. And some of the things that you said have been conversations happening among council members, and the best, way of how's Parks and Rec work into this. And it's been a huge conversation now. Ben, I think there's a reason why you said that Parks and Rec couldn't go into the IWC, and it has something to do with the bond, or I guess to get better clarity, because that was the first, how can we join together and maybe the staff can merge and work together?
It's whatever we do is gonna take some careful consideration, law of unintended consequences, just like you shared there. Because the way I think what you're saying, seeing maybe from administration is really a byproduct of state code and accounting structures. And the accounting structure of the IWC was set up under what's called a enterprise fund or a business type activity. And an enterprise fund has revenue and expenditures, and it's supposed to break out, very similar to how you would view water or sewer or power or anything like that. And can contribute to the general fund, but basically it's supposed to be standalone. Whereas other general fund departments like police and fire and whatnot, they're not revenue generating. They take general fund dollars and you use those dollars to invest in providing the greater good to the community. The challenge that we run into with regard to the IWC versus the rest of recreation is that we would not be able to survive without the member contributions and their monthly fees. That brings in about $1.2 million right now. And while we might be short a few $100,000, we certainly don't want to be short $1.5 million, right? And so members contribute, they pay into, and they receive the benefit from that. But in order to receive that benefit, you have to have a membership. That's the difference. You don't have to be a member of the recreation department in order to receive benefit from it. And so contributing tax dollars in the short term might be a fix because of the greater good. And you brought up some really good points. What are some of the greater good aspects of having the IWC? Well, that would be number one, it's an amenity in our community. And as we are looking for investment from large corporate venues that might want to bring in jobs and create business here, one of the first questions we're always asked is, what amenities do you have for our employees? So that's something that's hard to measure, but it's something that for us is always a quick answer. Well, we have the IWC, we have a great library, we have a great trail system, we have, these are all great things that have one of the best school districts, all those things we share. Something else is that you are in a high growth area, and there are areas to the north, and the city council took the first steps tonight to set a public hearing for December 2nd for an anticipated growth area in Summercrest to the north that could potentially bring in a lot of the amenities, but sees the IWC as an anchor to providing those amenities. So you're looking at a much grander, larger vision of how the IWC fits into that. So that all of these things are very positive. But at the same time, it would be very difficult for us to step away from a membership base and make it truly recreational based. And so whatever we do, we have to do very carefully. And at this point in time, I think your question that you have is this a long-term vision or a short-term? And what I would say is we're bowling. And so our long-term goal is hitting all those pins down at the end of the alley. And that's what we really want to do. And the steps we take now will help us get there. But we have to focus on the little arrows to make sure the ball rolls over them in order to knock those pins down at the end of the alley, right? So we have to have some short-term focus to make sure that we're financially sustainable and have a plan to get us there in a year, 2 years, 3 years. But with the mindset that we are creating a sustainable asset for our community that's gonna last generations. And that's, I think, there's a combination of both that need to be looked at as we move forward.
And when the bonds are paid off, I believe in 27 and 28, there's 2 of them.
Correct.
And that is that $1.2 million obligation, I assume?
I'm sorry, what?
The bond, the $1.2 million obligation, that is the 1.2 that you said, those are for the bonds, correct? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, okay,
That's
sorry. That's just for the- what do we have to pay? What is our obligation, I
There's,
guess?
I believe, about $3.5 million left. That was sent out in an email to the
Yeah.
council a while back, with a spreadsheet and the whole bit, but I believe there's 2 bonds and there are about $3.5 million left in those bonds, 27 and 20. I don't think that's 27 and 28. I think it's
32.
31 and 32.
It's 32.
Yeah.
27,
I-
33.
Redeemable, is that correct?
They are what's called it's not redeemable, it's callable. They're not callable until a date prior to that, for which we could then pay them off early if we wanted to. So right now, those bonds are outstanding. We do need to continue with those under the parameters by which the voters voted for them. And of course, we are obligated not only to the bondholders, but to Simpson and the school districts. We need to maintain our obligations, but it's not as if we can't sit down and talk and find common solutions for our community.
And do the bonds, does it involve the buildings and ground, or does it involve just the building? And where I'm heading with this is, I appreciate some of the comments made that, is there some opportunity with something else, Park and Rec or whatever? I know we got some plans out there too, but just, that's where I'm coming from. So is it just, are the bonds strictly for the building? I was on the council when we voted to put that on the bond issue, but I'm trying to remember if that land was part of the original bond issue.
I mean, there's the parking lot and then the grass areas surrounding it, just the immediate areas around it. They're all, it's kind of like a mortgage, you're buying the whole.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember if the land was purchased prior in another way or not. But, okay.
I mean, not that you couldn't, do other things on that property as long as it's in harmony with the overall voter language. that was
Right,
done.
it'd have to be something new. Okay.
Ben, do you see a way that you could, and I'm not advocating it become a Parks and Rec where, you walk into the park, you don't pay anything. But you walk into the swimming pool and you pay something. So is there a way to kind of keep the revenue generating stream viable and still be able to do some things in the short term? Because I'm fully, I fully believe in if you say where you want to be, and then you start figuring out what you could do in the year prior to that, the 2 years prior to that, 10 years prior to that, or 5 years prior to that, and then it becomes a step, and when you get there, you know what you've got.
Right.
And when that group got together 14, 12, or probably 13 or 14 years ago, I don't think they envisioned having that thing stay static for the next 50 years. It's got to change. The community is changing and that program out there just has to change. And you've got the people to make a change. We just need direction.
And I think you're spot on. We need to identify what that last step is to get there. Ron, you have some questions, like?
Yeah, so I was, Angie had mentioned, new equipment, marketing, technology, refreshing the programming, excuse me. Is there a particular one that would give us the most lift? I mean, I'm not a member out there just because I don't have enough time, so I don't know what the equipment's like, or I don't know what we have for marketing, and I don't know what the app is that we have for the technology, but is there one that you guys are familiar with? What would give us the greatest lift?
I think the easiest one would be the app, because it's pretty much part of the core package that you already subscribe to.
And what's the app gonna do for us?
It's going to help with communication for members. Right now, members, when they were a Y member, they had an app, they checked in with it. They were able to look and see, oh, my cycling class starts at 5:30 and it's gonna be, so right now they have to go online and it's not an easy thing to find. So it's just it's just the way the world works with everything. Everybody, like going to Jimmy John's and ordering your sandwich, you can do it the old fashioned way, but it's a lot easier to do it in your car and,
What's the app cost us?
I think we already have.
we have the capability.
Within our
I'm
software.
guessing it's a module we have to.
Like, we just have to turn it on. Or pay
Turn it
for
on
it.
and have the employee time to put it together and get it up and going.
And maintain it.
But that's the easiest one. I think as far as your question of what would have most impact, I think equipment. The other things all require staffing changes because, as mentioned, our staff is so lean right now. We can't add another thing to their plate. We can't say, hey, we know you're busy and you're trying to squeeze in 40 hours of work in your 25 hours that you're allotted. Could you just do a marketing thing? We just have to know when to say when and say you're a valuable employee. We don't want to overwork you.
The presentation that he said was, oh, they're adequately staffed. That may be true in numbers, but not in capabilities. So exactly what she says, the people that are capable of doing the most are very limited. Basically 3 people, in order to do the marketing and improve all that. Something's got to change there. So, adding a staff, I know it's spending money and it's hard to do.
It's the whole thing, you have to spend money to make money.
Money to save money to run the website or money to, for us. Another big thing they presented is, oh, you guys are you could draw from a larger area. What does that take? That's marketing. Now, whether we more better use the sources that are out there, the newsletter, the IMU thing, some of that might be already there. That's marketed in Indianola. It's not marketed to Carlisle and Milo and those places that we want to draw from to get the numbers that they were talking about. So again, it's spend a little money to get money, right? So I think that's kind of what we're saying.
Well, I think I would answer your question. Going back to this document here. Because they analyzed, and I think it's good. They did the SWOT. And they analyzed threats and opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, whatever the T is. Threats. If you look at the threats and you look at the opportunities, go through that threat list, and I'll give you one example that I do remember. You can't get directly to the Indianola campus website, if I'm correct. You have to go through the city's website and bam, bam, bam. Who's going to do that? In this day and age, it's instant access. So specifically to your question, I'd say get that website away so people can go right directly to it because it's got everything on it. It's just, I'm guessing some people just get frustrated because you jump through 3 hoops to get there.
I think this might be an area where we need to do some more discussion, because if I had to give you an answer, it would be a different answer entirely from what they just gave you, so.
What would your answer be?
Yeah,
Mine would be programming. I think programming would be the area that we would probably see the biggest impact immediately. I think if we had, and it does go to hiring, but I gave an example to them that if you looked at the Altoona campus website, they've got 8 personal trainers on staff, and they've got training available all the time, and I mean serious good training. So I think if we improved or changed our programming, I think that would be something that would be, I mean, very beneficial and impactful. And I think we could see a decent return on investment on that. You know, I think marketing is there. You know, whether it's through flyers in the mail or Facebook ads or some sort of social media advertisement, it's absolutely available. I think equipment is definitely a need, but everybody expects equipment. Everybody expects, you know, certain things, but looking for return on investment, I would personally think it's programming. But so I think this might be something as to where we think we should focus. Might be discussion that we need to have and come back to you with. Here's our, you know, what we really think is the area to focus on.
Oh, no, you can go ahead. I was just, I like that you referenced the Altoona campus, and I don't know if all of you have been there, but we moved from Altoona. So we watched very similar, mind you, many years before we were there, very similar situation happened to their campus there, and they were left in bad spots. I would have absolutely loved to see this based off of the campus, because that is the market and the clientele we are. We're not a medical YMCA, such as what it was for the Clive. It's a completely different product, but what Altoona does really well, and I can tell you for having a membership for 15 years, and I probably only went in that place twice. My husband and I had it the whole time we lived there, because you get a discount on your children's parks and rec sports, and you get a discount in the after-school care. It is all tied together. So, okay, sure, we had 2 kids playing parks and rec t-ball at one time, and it made more sense for my accounting husband to join the campus so that our kids got a discounted rate. We got a discounted after-school care because they do the after-school, the campus does the after-school. It is very in tune with their parks and rec. It is hand in hand, a lot of staff. That's why I would like to see if there's a way we
You
can do
already
it.
said we couldn't, so that's.
Well, there's
It's
things,
delicate.
it's not that you can't, it's that you have to ease into it. You have to figure out the things that make sense so that you don't negatively impact membership value and have people walk away because so many people are coming in, or negatively impact recreation. You just need to think about it, be careful to the law.
I mean, yeah, if people are getting a discount on their.
I mean, I was an ideal client. I did not cost the campus any money, except for the 2 times, which I think I went to personal training and was like, yeah, I'm never doing this again.
But
and
you,
again,
I think you'd be
exceptional.
shifting money at that point, because if you're giving a discount for your Parks and Rec stuff, then you're just shifting money from Parks and Rec to the wellness campus.
But there'll be people who just do it just to get the discount. You have a lot of kids and, you know.
I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. I saw Altoona campus offers homeschool PE. And so for people that are doing homeschool.
Their pool is super old.
So I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for programming improvement that we don't currently have. But while we have the good quality staff for what we offer, we don't have staff to do everything that might be necessary.
Mayor, I appreciate your idea on after-school care because you think of where that building's located and you think about the number of cars that drive by there every day and the parents that work in Des Moines. if they could stop by and pick up their kid.
They
and
do it
say-
in the schools. They do their after school in the school. So they're like the ICC. It's the campus does their daycare.
Oh, okay.
Inside the school is the ICC. So not looking to take that away from
No,
ICC,
no.
but you know, it's just one more creative approach that they've taken. So there are people who will join. You also get a discounted pool pass if you're a member. And their pool passes, you can go indoor and outdoor, which is, I mean, I don't know, just more crazy.
It's very seamless from my understanding.
And it's taken a long time to get there. I mean, we lived there when they had a failed bond referendum. It hasn't always been beloved, but again, a very old pool. And you know, I think they're doing really well, so.
I mean, is this something that we could, I mean, have you been in contact? Do you know much about the Altoona campus or what they have to offer as a comparison for what we're trying to do?
We've reached out, and part of the study, they reached out as well. It's my understanding Altoona was once a YMCA as well.
It was a
Correct.
YWCA.
And so they're certainly a model we could follow. What I was gonna say earlier was basically, I sort of feel like we've inherited this car. It's got dirty windows and we're driving in third gear. And it's, the engine's really racing and the oil hasn't been changed in a long time. But it's a fantastic car, and we just need to remember that we've been given this great car, this great object to get us to point A to point B. And I think there's a couple of things. How do we address those things? Change the oil, get the things fixed along the way. But I think also, where is the car pointed? Where are we going? And are we all on board? Because right now, I think that there's this prevailing feeling within our community because it's revving and it's because it's, you know, it hasn't had the oil change and all this kind of stuff. That we have a lot of people going, is this a good car or not? Or is this where we want to be or not? And I think if we commit to ourselves to say, this is great car and this is where we're going, that makes us get to the point where we want to be. How we get there.
Ben, I think Knoxville also has a community recreation facility through their Parks and Rec department. So that might be another resource to see how they do things over there.
Right, but so of course, we have limited bandwidth within our current staff at the IWC and limited bandwidth within our staff as a city staff. And that's why whatever the council decides it wants to do as we're going into next year's budget retreats and all that type of thing, we're starting to plan for the future. I would recommend trying to find the plan that smooths out those edges, that has something that's, you know, if we know we're gonna have to spend $100,000 in capital improvements over a 5-year period, let's roll it in, let's get those things fixed and then plan for the $100,000 going forward. And that keeps a good rotation. When I first got a police department as a young city manager, we had all the cars broken at once and we didn't try to replace them all at once. You try to get 2 cars per year, and then you keep that rotation going. And it's easy to budget and it makes it smooth. And it makes it so that you're fiscally sound without the spikes that hit along the way. That kind of approach, whatever you guys decide you want to do.
That's exactly what my middle point was, as far as being able to give direction so that staff knows what is expected, you know, like back to your point of the whole car analogy. I think our staff and leaders, we need to know what kind of car we're driving and does the GPS work? Does the, you know, like.
We just wanted to keep it
you know, like
going while
you-
we're to this.
I'm sure we've all driven a used car where, is that gas gauge accurate? You know, like, we just wanna know, you know, a little more direction. And I think we're all willing to work together to make it a reality.
Yeah, we can come up with what, you know, what you give us the orders, and then we'll come up with a plan and bring it. Right now, we're kind of running without any walls and we're just kind of.
I think we're a lot more closer together in our thoughts than maybe ever we all thought. I think we're all on the same page. We wanna maintain this, we've got the right stuff. But how do we maintain it? And how do we maintain it that it's not tax subsidized, right? And I think that's what we all want at the end of the day.
I was just gonna share, like, historically, being somebody who grew up here, like, it's been pretty amazing to watch just healthcare and wellness and all of those things grow. Like, when I was younger and needed a physical therapist, I had to go to Des Moines for physical therapy. And we now have, I mean, I should count them up. My office alone has 9 physical therapists. Mercy has at least 3, Athletico has at least 3, the Village has it, Good Samaritan has physical therapy, like the growth that we have seen in this town and the opportunity to stay in this town and put our business in this town is so cool. And so like, I feel like the bridging the gap from medical to wellness is like such a huge opportunity. So I suppose I would piggyback on like programming being the most important, because like as our providers at Unity Point, our providers at Mercy, our providers at Iowa Clinic see the need to refer to the IWC, we will just automatically have more members, because patients listen to their doctors and their healthcare providers. And so if people in this town collectively understand that the way I don't get a repeat client is a patient who takes what I've taught them and then meets with a personal trainer and then goes to a group fitness class, and they graduate physical therapy and they don't have to be a repeat customer. Like, we are bursting at the seams at our physical therapy office right now because people like don't have anywhere to go or don't understand how what the next steps are for them, because there's no personal trainers for me to refer them to. And when I send them to the IWC all alone with no direction, either they're scared or they get hurt and then they come back to me. And they would rather just stay with me or with another physical therapist, because it's scary to like go out there and not have that direction. And so the things that we used to have in place when we were the old Y, and the guidance that the membership was getting, unfortunately isn't there anymore. So I think like, I guess that's my like medical kind of standpoint, is just like, it's amazing to see, like, I'm 42 years old, and when I was 12, there was no PT in Indianola. Even when I was 18, there was no PT in Indianola. And then my brothers, once they came through high school, there finally was some PT, eventually athletic training. And then you can just see that whole, it's booming. It's booming. Like, yeah, I mean, I can't stress that enough, like how much people need a place for their health and wellness.
Do you think that there's any preventative measures for people coming because of money? Maybe they can't afford the membership. No. I know our membership is very comparable. What I'm saying is from that standpoint that you could maybe go to the Blake Fields house and utilize for free the track, but preventative medicine and take care of yourself is so important. So do you think that cost is prohibitive?
I do think it is, but I think that's because we need a change of culture. I think that people will spend money on what they want to spend money on. If people chose to spend less money on Starbucks and more money on their health or McDonald's or whatever else, like, we could see a change of culture. That's the whole like blue zones thing. If you guys have ever watched like the blue zones, and all the research that has been done on like why people live to be 100 and the reasons why they are thriving communities, it's because of culture. So it's a culture change, and culture comes from the top down. Like, people will listen to the people that they value and believe in.
Piggyback on that, whatever we do, people have to see a value. Whether it's from a health perspective or something there. And I mean, we can pour tons of money in there, but if people don't see any value for what they're getting, there'll be some people come, just keep coming. There are other people say,
It is getting better generationally though. They're seeing younger generation. My daughter is a lot healthier than me.
Well, I'm a brass tacks kind of guy. So I'm just gonna kind of throw this out there to you guys. I think what we're getting at is we need direction. That's pretty clear. Do you guys have the appetite? Clearly, Power Wellness was never going to implement all of this without some upfront capital. That was never going to happen. So do you guys have the appetite to help us implement some of these that we decide are most important and try and get us back into the black by spending money to make money? That is, I think, the first question. And second question then is, do you should we provide you guys with a 2-year and a 10-year plan?
See your guys' 10-year vision.
So I think that covers what Mike would like, whether it's a 2-year and a 10-year plan. We could probably come up with both. We would get with the leadership team of the Wellness Center and decide what their priorities are. But we can't do any of that without the backing of the council. And so, you know, if you guys tell us that you've got the appetite to support us financially to make some of these changes. Now, I understand it's not a blank check. But, you know, I think what we're kind of wondering about is we can come up with these great ideas. We have no idea if you guys are going to even accept them or if you guys want us to go in this route. Are we spinning our wheels in the mud for nothing, or are we going to get traction on with these? So, you know, do you guys have the appetite?
You guys share?
Go ahead, Boo.
Go, we'll start on this side, all
Some
right?
time. So, I think there are things that we can do immediately that requires us to maybe not spend the money to try to make some money, right? We talked about the 2080s, like sitting down, renegotiating those. It's been, one of the things been talked about since before I even was sworn in, when I was meeting with Heather. I think that's something we have to. I think if our partners at the school in Clemson want it to be a long-term viability, they're gonna have to be, you know, bought in. There's things like sales tax. Let's talk about, you know, some of the elephants in there that haven't been talked about. We've got to figure out a way to how to incorporate that into our fees, so we're not losing that money off of our memberships. You can do things like just, you know, people take the credit card fees and bake it into the cost of the product, right? We could do that with sales tax. So that we aren't losing that money right there. We can turn
That's on our
on,
agenda for tomorrow night.
and we can turn on the app, right? You know, we've already got it. We can turn that on for programming. I would say in terms of some of the things of spending money, in terms of staff, I don't see additional staff happening in the immediate, like 2-year future. Opinion of one, all right, opinion of one. Got you on. Opinion of one, just with some of the budget constraints that we already have with staff and salaries and all that. You know, if we were to try to throw staff at everybody that needs staff, I mean, whew, you're looking at a hefty, you know, tax increase there and that. So now could that be something that we look at in that year 3 to 10, right? Sure, we could probably look at that way. Could you do some short-term marketing in years 1 and 2? I think, you know, for that, to do that and then phasing it. And I think that's obviously something, if we want this to be long-term, we have to. I've been there. We've seen the equipment. If it is working, you know, that's a question of the day sometimes. So I think that's where you spend the money to make the money, is in the equipment, in the immediate, like 2-year plan. I told Heather when I started, I look at it as a small business. How long does it take for a small business to make money? About 5 years, 5 to 7, right? So if it's gonna be a long-term viable thing, I don't think we were looking at going from 436,000 in the hole to 436,000 in profit in year 1. But if we can make those incremental changes, like Steve and I talked one day a little bit about some just little minor things like the sales tax, like all of a sudden you start taking dents away and that 436 is, you know, going away a little bit quicker. So that's out of 1 of 7 people, my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess, when I look at things, I kind of look at big picture. I would start by looking at what do we need and then how do we get there? So, I heard you list of, you need an app, you need marketing, you need web access, equipment, programming, staffing. And what priority order, that's up to you to decide. What the cost of all those are, I don't know the price tag. And how do we get there? Well, I don't know what we have in our budget, and I don't know what the cost of all those are. When it comes to funding for us. Obviously, it comes down to priority and what it's gonna take away from. I can't give you an answer to that. But what I would say is we would have to figure out a way to come up with that money. I would start by saying the 2080 agreements need to be revisited. I would even say, like Steve's point, sales tax. And what other, anything else that we could do to figure out where we have an opportunity to come up with kind of that hole in revenue. I don't know that there's any appetite for increasing fees, because I think that's just going to limit our ability to attract more members. So it's really kind of brainstorming and figuring out how we get membership and bring in more revenue. Maybe that's back to marketing. It's kind of prioritizing that list.
You know, Steven mentioned the 2080s, the sales tax, and one other that always sticks in the back of my head is setting up the 501(c), right? And why we haven't done that and why we aren't accessing that revenue stream currently. I'd like to see us do that. I would love to give you all the money to bring this up to a great facility. We're hamstrung a little bit with the House File 718, you know, we're reduced in our amount that we're able to collect as a community, and expenses are skyrocketing, our revenue is decreasing, puts us in a tough hole, actually. Not to say that I'm not against a layered approach, you know, X amount over such or so many years so we can get new equipment, so we can get marketing. But as they were saying, you know, we need to go through the budget process and figure out where we are. I think it's a great asset to the community, and I know it's loved by many, and I certainly want to see a success. I don't want to see it fail, so.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm ready now. No, I just, 1 of 6, get the disclaimer out of the way, right? You know, I would say that I'm very appreciative of all the passion, right? And I think it's really cool that within your group, there's very clearly a diverse set of ideas, right? Which is probably how you get to a full, well-rounded. I think it's great. I think it's great. Humble brag. I've been there within the last week. Heather can fact check me on that one. Don't look at how many times I've been there in the last 6 months. My family and I, we do use the facility. I would say where we're at is I'm all for it, but it's complicated, right? Like, it's complicated, but I think the timing is tremendous, because right now, talk about vision, right? And what's going on. That's a huge part of what we're trying to work on right now, is reshaping a lot of our facilities and a lot of our offerings and amenities for the city for the next 6 years and beyond. And so I think a lot of this weaves into that, and we have a lot of time dedicated to bringing clarity to that, which I think ultimately helps bring clarity to you guys. I would say that I think there's alignment with Ben on your bowling analogy, which is yet another one. I've yet to hear Ben. Well done on the arrows and the pins and the long-term and short-term. And like, I think we have to look at it that way, right? We do have some near-term challenges that we have to figure out, but it would be problematic if we weren't looking 10, 15, 20 years in the future as we're doing that. You know, I think it would probably be helpful. I'm not smart enough in your guys' game to tell you, look at this first, look at that first. Like, what I would say is I think it'd be really helpful if there was, you know, here's the 2-year steps within the goal of 10-year steps. here's aggressive, and here's maybe not quite as aggressive. Because to a lot of what Ron shared, you know, we're still reacting to a changing financial reality from the state level. And so I think it's a journey we're all gonna walk together. You know, I think the agreements with Simpson and the school are worth talking about, and that's also complicated, right? IWC is one part of a bigger relationship with all those, but I do think it's important that we start furthering that, because there's half dozen different things that we're interacting with those entities on right now. And so it should be holistic, right? We can't bring the hammer on this one, talk about unintended consequences of risking some others. So I'm not trying to circle talk anything here. I think there's a definite, timing is great for a path forward. We just, I think, probably use some more of these, I would say personally, some more of that, here's how we see it, right? If we all truly buy into this vision, here's how we see it. I think I do, but it's complicated, right? So I need some direction from you guys to help weave this into this Vision 2030 and our budget of what we're trying to accomplish forward. But I do appreciate very, very much. And yeah, I actually have not read the rules. We were using the racquetball court, and I now, as I sit here and think about it, I'm not sure if we're using it in an appropriate fashion or not. My son's a soccer player, and it was raining, and it's really loud in there when you're playing soccer. But I do appreciate very much what you guys are doing here. And I would say, from my perspective, I'm very positive on trying to figure out a way to make all this work together.
Josh, let me tell you, the pickleballers sometimes go in there and do drills,
Yeah.
but it is loud.
Oh, and I was like, dude, I don't know, he's talking to me. I'm like, you're 5 feet away from me and I cannot hear a thing you're saying to me. But it is tremendous, and there's a ton of tremendous things going on in this town. And I'm so appreciative of this opportunity right now, because I think, again, it all ties in together. I was talking with the citizen today that we have more projects going on now. Like, think about the last time there was this much dirt turning in town, right? And this area has a lot going on, and there's a lot more to come. And so I think we would be short-sighted if we weren't trying to be supportive of that in a responsible way. So
I do, like, you know, I like to think devil's advocate, so let's just think, okay, what if this goes away?
when I play soccer in the
By
rain.
Indianola swim team, like, I was on that swim team, like, you know, what does Simpson do? What does Indianola do? Like, I mean, like, you have to think, like, what's at stake here? A lot at stake, right? So I think you have to kind of almost like think like, well, okay, so what if it fails? You know, what do you put on that list? It goes away.
What Josh was saying with all the dirt turning, there's a lot of dirt turning in that northeast quadrant, and it's not gonna stop. I think we had a joint meeting with the school board last week. And Bill was talking about, you know, X number of units here and X number of units here. And I think I added up, it's somewhere between 500 and 600 units in the next 3 or 4 years. So I mean, that's a lot of potential new clientele for the idea.
I was impressed with your presentation. Thank you for that. And to Ron's point, Emerald Bay, the development there's 96 apartments, 36 condos, and 24 townhomes going across the road from you guys, essentially out there. So,
Steve, are they having they are having a gym on site, aren't they?
I don't remember. I think they were.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
Goes into that, right? No, they're not.
No.
Okay,
So
great. They can all
I
come over
think
together.
what you've heard here tonight is that I believe there's pretty much unanimous support for IWC to become independent, in a sense that it's gonna be run by the city or by you folks, essentially. I think that's the first hurdle we had to overcome, because of some discussion about, you know, everybody was kind of looking at the report that was given out, and we had to kind of look at that. I think that's water under the bridge. I think it's over. I think we are looking to find a way to help you folks get to a point where we are in the black. And back to Josh's point about 3 years or so. You know, I was talking with Heather and excuse me, I've got some allergies. You know, there's some things you can do immediately, like sales tax we were talking about in 501(c) and you know, and renegotiation of the 2080 agreements, which will take some time, but I think, you know, within a 3-year period or so, you folks will have a big dent in the deficit that's currently there. I think working with city staff, other than WC staff as well, I think there can be some things done in shared services, you know, get some help from maybe Jason, the IT department, a little bit with the website and a few other things to kind of work with those kinds of things that can help you as well. Where I'm heading with this is that I think from a standpoint, and I've talked to the council and mayor and everybody else a long time about, you know, we need to stay focused on policy. Darn it. That getting out of the hole is consequential for all of us here, and that's something, and for you folks too, I'm not discounting that. And so I think it's really important that you do that, and whether it's a 3-year or 5-year plan or a little longer, then that's what it's gotta be. But we need to kind of step out as a council of saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, let you folks as a board, working with staff, make the decisions that's gonna be best. You know, I walked into this tonight thinking that maybe, you know, equipment was gonna be the biggest need, but I agree with you. I think maybe programming is the biggest need. You know, we need to look at that. And I think staff has some ideas of how maybe they can expand some opportunities without having to hire right away additional folks, but maybe offer some additional programming through different ways. There's also some things that maybe staff can look at about, you know, rearranging some people in some descriptions of jobs or classifications or things that can be done. But again, I think you folks working with staff to do that is where we need to go. We just need a report every so often about, hey, this is where we are, this is what we're doing, and we're following the policy of, we want to make this thing work. I mean, for me, and I'm not speaking for everybody here, but hearing what they've been saying is, yeah, we want it all to work as well and become independent and do it ourselves and not have some third party come in and do that. And so I think if we can figure that out and get us out of the hole and don't have to require or rely on additional taxpayer dollars to do that, I think that would be wonderful and gives us an opportunity to say, hey, you know, we've got people here that know how to make this successful and the board can make this successful. Talk to community development about some of the developments going in around you and see if there can be some communication with those folks as well about what they're planning. I don't want to say anything here because it's all in the air and it's all tentative, but again, Ben did mention we're talking about a development agreement coming up. Is when is that?
December 2nd is what we're targeting.
Yeah. Maybe some of you want to be here for that and hear that discussion and what that's all about. And maybe you want to talk to the people that are putting that together, because there are some things that I think can play into what you're looking at doing and what would help you folks as well with that IWC and some of the land around there. So
We could give some naming rights to a developer if they need it.
there you go. Let's get that 501(c) going and they can do whatever, right?
Sorry, Heather.
But again, I think it's, I don't, you folks are in the, you folks that get all the information, you're in the day-to-day grid of that. And what I'm trying to say is, from my perspective as a council member, I don't think that's my role to dictate to you folks what you do, other than saying, we want to make this work. We want to keep it in the community, not go to a third party. You tell us how that's going to work best. And that's my perspective. Because I think that's what we need from you, is just say, okay, this is the best way to do it. You come to a consensus, whether it's programming, whether it's equipment, whether it's something else, whether it's staff, whatever the case is. We can have the discussions here about whether or not we hire more people or spend the money, or just say to Heather, I'll figure out a way to do it. And so, but again, that's our policy decision. You folks do the day-to-day stuff. And that's kind of where I'm from and where I'm coming from on this whole perspective, because I think we can do this. I think together we can do this in a 5 to 7 to 10 year, probably 10-year plan overall, but I think we can get there quicker simply because we've got some great opportunities. 501(c) people are going to donate. People will donate to that. It'll keep it going. It'll get you out of the black in a quicker fashion. The two things we talked about already between the sales tax and the 2080 agreements, if we can negotiate that favorably, you folks can probably have that deficit in a very quick period of time. So my perspective is, leave it up to you. You tell us what you need. We'll be as supportive as we can, and work with staff to make that happen. And don't just IWC staff, don't be afraid to talk to Ben about what other staff can help do some things too.
So since I threw the questions, you guys, I'm just gonna kind of go over this. The general consensus, not complete, but general consensus is you would like us to focus on alternative methods of increasing revenue rather than just you guys giving us money. So the sales tax would be preferable. The renegotiating the 2080 agreements and the 501c3 are kind of what I've heard as the top three priorities. With respect, 2 out of the 3 of those are not our call. Those actually kind of go back to you guys. I believe Ben was kind of going to work on the 501c3 when we first started and broke apart.
It depends on if we want to be community focused. Are we having one that's just for the IWC, or do we utilize the one that's already in existence that could be utilized today? That's a quick.
So then that, I mean, but that's not something that I think we are the ones that spearhead. So I think you're absolutely right, the 501c3. And so if we just want to work under the same one that's already established, that's up to you guys to decide how that goes.
And how does that muddy stuff if we have one for the community and we're using it towards something that's an enterprise? Is it a problem?
It's not. The one that we have for the community today is utilized. Doug could probably talk a lot more about it.
The Mineola Community Foundation is a separate board that's not affiliated with the city.
Okay, you can.
So they would have to, a board member from the board of trustees, they would have to make a presentation to the community foundation. The way I understand it was they helped raise money for the YMCA in the first place.
They did, they raised money to buy the land.
Should be.
So that's something we could.
Basically, they would
The
set up
entire area.
a money coming in, money going out. It's separate from the other ones that they have. They have money silos working on different.
Their money is invested in the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation, so.
So we can just solve that problem.
Right now.
Well, but there's advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of having your own setup is that you it's wholly owned by the IWC. It's still a separate entity, but it's IWC focused and whatnot. I think if you want immediacy and community unity, you could go with the one that's existing.
The Indianola Community Foundation for the 100 Women Who Care, for Mayor's Youth Council, and we get funneled, I mean, all our money that we never have to pay a percentage or anything, which is really nice. Mind you, we're talking about much smaller, $5,000, $10,000.
To go back to your, I'm sorry.
Oh,
To go back to your point though, I think if you can tell us which one you'd prefer to do, that's what I think you folks need to do. We're, I can't say me, I'm okay with saying, hey, you want to set up a 501c3, let's do it. But which one do you want? You want your own? You want one through the community foundation? You do your research and tell us, make a recommendation. I mean, you could even send it via email. Our recommendation is this, and this is what we want to do.
I think it's been super helpful to hear all of your perspectives. I think it's just great to hear all the ideas shared and kind of get on the same page, sit at the same table finally. So thank you for that opportunity.
Well, and so I think like Scott, you guys could bring us back a 2 and 10-year plan, as well as one of the points you brought was a long-term maintenance plan. We would probably like to see that too. We're not sure what your maintenance needs are. We're not.
We do still have 2 board members online. I don't know if you can talk to them if they have any questions.
And then, yeah, we're probably
Sorry,
getting a
I'm
little
not
bit long, but I think we have given
savvy with-
maybe some good ideas.
It's Emily and JC.
Emily and JC, do either of you on online have anything to say?
No, I've been following along. Sounds like a great discussion. Thank you.
Same for me. I think this has been really helpful and looking forward to moving forward with a little more clarity.
I knew they were
Bring
sitting
us
on
your
there. I wanted to
dreams
make
here,
sure
right?
they.
Yeah, thank you, that pointing
Thank
out.
you, yes.
I think though, again, this is just me, but I think if you can just kind of make a couple of decisions down the road here, in the near future about revenue stream a little bit about, you're gonna talk about sales tax, for instance, and maybe how you want to deal with the 501c3 and get that to us, then you guys can move forward, and then you can also tell us in the future, back to what the mayor was talking about what your needs are, equipment on the program here. Am I right there? Is that?
Yeah, and well, one of their points was a long-term maintenance plan that they don't have, so that is important to establish that. I think if you're gonna bring back your dreams, your goals, and I'm sure it may be aligned somewhere, but maybe we don't understand, so maybe we're saying, no, we don't have money, but you come back and you say, hey, this is gonna bring you $1 million. Dreaming big, right? But then we'll be like, well, maybe we will give you, as we're going into the budget season, so there's a value for everything, and
What kind of time frame do we have to get to that before you start?
we start in January.
I'm free tomorrow.
End of the week stat, I guess that's what you're gonna be doing all week.
I think the elephant in the room is our current bylaws don't allow us to make decisions like that. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I think
Good to
that
know.
that might need to be looked at just from, we've never come to a trustees meeting with those goals in mind. So it's
You
kind of a
asking for
different,
decision or a recommendation?
everything in our bylaws say that we will bring it to council for that you're the decision.
It's a
maker.
recommendation.
That's why I'm just wondering if in the interest of this, without rewriting bylaws, if you were coming with a plan that you recommend to us to enact, keeps that intact, maybe.
Maybe
I don't know, I just wanna make sure we're following the proper rules. Another thing to think about is, we're not like a group that looks at the finances, like we never see a budget, we never see the general fund, like the line item. We don't see a balance sheet, we don't see any of that, and so I think
You need some of that information.
moving forward, that might be, I feel like we're looking at things that require more information than just like, oh, it's nice to dream about.
It'd be
these
good
things.
information to have for you guys monthly.
Maybe not to overspeak, but maybe one of your recommendations as part of your plan is rewriting your bylaws now that your guys' mission and ethos potentially changing as we've taken on a different thing. That's, I think, something worth holistically looking at as well as part of this, right? To make sure that we have the right tools in place for you and other staff to guide this ship.
I think that that's a wise recommendation, just from the standpoint of, we didn't know what we were getting, and none of us knew what we were getting into a year ago when we started. So,
this.
yeah, we've
Well, we've extended all of your terms until 2035, so you're stuck.
I just think it's good to revisit.
That's a 10-year plan.
Yeah, that's a 10-year plan.
Same for us, we're all stuck here for 10 years together.
Okay.
I just have one more question. Have you guys looked at any state grants, federal grants? Is there any grants available for a wellness type of facility?
I think again, since we aren't really the ones that have dealt with the money, we haven't looked into that currently.
Kind of feels like, it's like, go ask your mom, no, go ask your dad, no, go ask your mom, like, that, I guess that's how I feel.
I feel like we're pushing you back to dad right now.
Yeah.
Or mom.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so who's gonna implement this? How's it gonna, like,
Who's gonna do it
allowed?
in their
Like,
lack of hours in the day already?
Yeah,
For your
yeah.
volunteer commitment here?
I just don't think, if I may, Mayor, I just don't think. Maybe I'm misinterpreting your roles a little bit, and I hope not, but excuse me if I do. But I guess from what I'm kind of looking at is that as a board, you probably know more about some of the things than we do overall about how the operation runs. And so I want recommendations from you folks so that we can make it a better opportunity for everybody in the community. So I don't want to get into the day-to-day policy decisions that you folks need to make. We make the overarching policy decisions and based on your recommendations, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. As far as budgets are concerned, I know Heather's got a budget to a certain extent to work with, and maybe that could be shared or whatever. But again, rely Jackie or Ben or somebody or some of our other staff members could also then provide some information for you about where you are, what your spending is, where you're at this point in time. I don't know any reason why they couldn't ask for that. They need it.
It's all public information.
Huh?
It's all public information.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think sometimes though, we just don't know where to find it, so.
Right.
We can overtly provide that.
Yeah. The first year that we were together, we spent the whole year just setting up rudimentary policy.
Yeah.
We really didn't get an opportunity to do this forward thinking that, and then all of a sudden we get this study and then we're really more confused, which like I said, which guardrails are we gonna use? And I think tonight we've found out what kind of guardrails we got and what you want us to do.
Mhm.
And I think that we've got a really good group that can do that for you.
I am impressed and thoroughly. Except you didn't want to sit over here, but that's okay.
And sit in the short chair.
So I feel better about our direction.
So do we want to establish a timeline?
I'd say
or-
that's the one hanging thing real quick is your guys' timeline. I'm sure that's where we're all thinking the same thing here is when do we need something back to help? I don't know that it needs to be perfect, but we start talking about budgets in January, right? So any guidance you can start to give us prior to that?
Sure, Heather's got a wish list back there.
Well, our next
Meeting tomorrow.
scheduled meeting is tomorrow night, so we already had to publish our agenda very
Refresh our-
vaguely because
I mean, it
we
could just
didn't
be an
know.
Excel worksheet. It doesn't have to be a fancy presentation, but to start at, what do you need this first year to make some
I think
minor
we could do that,
improvements?
don't you?
Some
We'll do our
directional-
best.
We'll do our best, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And thank
Great
you,
meeting,
Emily
guys.
and
Thank you.
JC.
Appreciate all of you.
All
Very
right,
much so.
we're adjourned.